So welcome to Dive Beyond Sport. I'm Freddy Woodward.
And I'm Yona Wisdom. In each episode, we speak to athletes to discover their identity, value, and excellence. DIVE, dive.
This isn't about medals, results, or records. It's about the people behind the performance.
And in today's episode, we feature League 2 winning Brentford cult hero, turned promotion winning Brentford Women head coach, Karleigh Osborne.
Hey, how are you guys?
Welcome. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Let's dive in.
Thank you for having me.
Beautiful, beautiful. So just as a bit of a warm-up question, Karleigh, just to kind of get the ball moving. I wondered if you had any interesting kind of pre-match ritual, either as a player or as a coach, that you wanted to share with us today.
So not so much as a coach, but more as a player. So before I would go out, I would there's a little bit of time when you come back in from your warm-up to before you go out and line up in the tunnel. I used to do a bit of visualization. So I would put a towel over my head. I'd sit in my spot. I'd put a towel over my head, and I would sort of go through some things that I'm going to do in the game. So I would visualize like my first header, my first pass, my first tackle, all of those types of elements, so I can create some connection before I even get out to the pitch. So that was one of my early rituals. And then what I would do is in the tunnel, I would do a bit of a breathing exercise where I would take a really sort of sharp, deep breath and then blow it out quite aggressively. And I'll do that about 4 or 5 times, and then walk out on the pitch. I would say a prayer, and then it's go time, full battle mode.
Full battle mode.
It's interesting you say that because I find it really cool to watch different players when they come out onto the pitch, the different things that they do, the different routines that they have, the rituals. Some players will touch the pitch, some players will, as you say a prayer, and that's just what we can see. Never mind what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
In the dressing room, in the tunnel, and as you say, it's like battle mode. You are almost in a bit of a war, and you got to give 100% energy at all times. What is that feeling like when you stood in the tunnel next to the opposite team, getting ready to walk out, knowing that you got to give your absolute all, and you could be in a bit of a fight?
I think I was a centre back, so I was combative. I liked the battle against forwards. I liked the challenge of the mind, trying to outsmart someone, outthink someone, and knowing they're trying to do the same to you. So I really enjoyed that competitive edge of the game. I think as I obviously sort of developed through my career, you start to understand how much of an impact the sort of psychological element, the mindset element of sport and competitive sport, and how important it is. So for me, I always used to enjoy when I'd come out, I'd look at the forward I was playing against, and in my head I'd be like, right, it's me or them. They can't have anything from me today. Anywhere they go, I'm going to be there. They need to come off the pitch thinking to themselves, I never want to play against this person again, because it's such a hard battle. So I always tried to get myself in that mode. I definitely didn't always win, but I'd like to speak that most people I played against knew they was in a game.
How does that compare with your mindset, like towards diving? Because obviously it's we both come from a diving background, so it's really interesting to speak to people from sports where it is you are like directly going head to head against other people. Whereas did you have similar kind of aggression almost mindset to your diving performance, or was that like different? It's a good comparison.
It was slightly different. It's an interesting comparison. It was slightly different because as you say, we don't have that direct battle with our opponent. So it's me and me alone on the diving board, and I'm the only one who can influence the outcome of my dive. There's no one else that can influence the outcome. So on the flip side, I don't try and worry about what other people are doing. I'm not worried about their dive because I can't influence their outcome. They can't influence mine. I'm just trying to focus on myself as much as possible. So I take a bit more of an opposite approach in that I'm just trying to be calm and try to be controlled in my approach to each dive, because if I'm getting too aggressive, then diving is a funny sport where you can't actually give 100% energy. You have to control your energy on the boards, because the movements have to be in time and rhythm. If you go 100% to the springboard, it's going to fight against you and it's not going to work, or you might fly over, or, there's going to be something off. So it's a totally different approach, but at the same time, it's like getting that psychological, it's that psychological place where you are confident in your abilities and you're confident in yourself, and you can, I guess, outfight your opponent. But I guess the difference is, Karleigh, yours is a direct fight, mine is a indirect fight.
It's really good, right? Because obviously I played in a team sport where there's 11 other players, whereas obviously for you it's very singular. But I think within all sport, and again, I think this is even in life, like everything starts within the mind, everything starts with you. And I think the only way you truly get to the highest level is being fully committed to taking accountability for everything that you do. And you can't, in my sport, as I said, it's a team sport. I can give 100% and do everything I possibly can in the best way possible, and someone else might make a mistake and it might cost us. But I'll always look back and say, well, how could I have maybe helped that person, or how could I have offered it, or how could I have done something different? And there'll be times when you realize that actually there isn't anything I could have done in that moment. But I think true sort of greatness comes from the willingness to be super vulnerable with yourself and take full accountability for all that you do in order to give yourself the best chance to perform.
You talked about like your pre-game routine, and what you just talked about then about like, you have to take full accountability. Is that a message that you give and have been giving to, the when you were coaching like the women's teams, for example? Is that something you really tried to instill in them?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most important foundations, most important pillars to any success, if you're going to go and get success. So it's a message that I always kind of spoke about to players, and even with my own football academy, we got players from the age of 16, and again, it's something that we try to instill, the understanding of taking accountability, building that self-confidence, that self-belief, asking yourself the right questions that are going to help you progress and move forward. And I think that's something that's really key. As I said, if you want to be successful, if you want to achieve something, then you have to be willing to do that. And I think working with the women's team was really good, because it showed me another side of vulnerability and how you can help others move forward, how you can build greater connection, and how you can create even more belonging within a group to really move a group forward. And especially when you're a leader of the group, I think that's a fundamental you have to have.
Absolutely. And I think that would be obviously that would have come from your identity as a footballer, like your approach to how you're a football player suited your approach to how you were as a manager, I presume. But how did football exactly kind of shape your identity and the person that you were kind of away from the pitch, whether it's in a leadership position, with the women's team, or externally of that?
I think football played a huge part in my life as a young man, sort of growing up in a professional environment. I started training with the first team when I was 16. And when you're in that environment, it's about winning. People have got to pay their bills and all of those types of things. So there's a lot of pressure from an early age. But I think it taught me resilience. I think it gave me a foundation to push and challenge myself, be competitive. The world is competitive. I think sometimes we try and shy away from that, but we're always competing, whether that be me on the football pitch, you diving, or everyday 9-to-5 job, right? You're always competing. And I think it gave me the understanding that that's a realization of kind of the world, and definitely the industry that we were in terms of sport. And you've got to be willing to sacrifice. And I think the greatest thing that it probably taught me is the willingness to sacrifice, not just for yourself, but for others to do good, for others to win, for others to achieve success. And when you're in a group, and I was fortunate to win trophies in my career. I won 3 promotions and got to finals, and that's some really amazing kind of accolades. And I think it's ultimately because when you get a group of people together who are all willing to sacrifice for each other, that's a really beautiful thing. Because as I said earlier, it creates belonging. It creates a willingness to understand and grow with people, and creates a collective vision that we can now move forward with. And when you get the other side of it and you actually achieve what your goal was, for example, promotion, that feeling lives with you forever. I get to look at my medals and remember the good times I shared, remember the bad times and tough times that come with it, within that journey and within that battle. And that for me is, things I'll sort of live with for the rest of my life, and have made lifelong friends because of those shared journeys.
Was there a specific moment in your career, probably as a player, where you really felt and understood the power of the team element and really giving to others so that you could all succeed? Was there a specific time that really realized the power in that?
I think my first promotion, actually, to be fair, I think it was probably so my first year as a pro, we got relegated, which was really tough. I was 17, 18, starting my journey as a professional footballer.
Yeah.
And the weight of the world felt like it was on our shoulders, especially when we're not doing well. Because ultimately, perform and bring joy to people's lives. I mean, it's not going well when your team is potentially going to get relegated. That's not what's happening. And I think that was the first taste of understanding that it's so important that people sacrifice for each other and are willing to hold each other accountable, are willing to push each other's boundaries for the better so that everyone can progress. And then I think the realization of it probably then came to light of what the difference between two was and what we was missing maybe then and what we had when we got our first promotion. It was that when you win it and you get through to the end of the season, and the joy and the celebration and the elation that we shared as a group, but then you see it bring to so many fans and other people, that for me was a taste of success that I still remember now, and definitely kind of lit a fire in me where I was like, I want more of this. I want to do more of that. And then I think you start to recognize and understand traits in changing rooms that are good or bad. And it's those. And I think you just, over time, you start to really understand what it takes to win. And ultimately what it takes to win is a lot of sacrifice, a lot of accountability, a lot of hard work, but ultimately a lot of being prepared to push yourself through boundaries that at times you might not want to, but that in this moment you have to, because there might be another day when you're not in the place to do it, but someone else will help do it for you, and it's important.
It's interesting that you went to the relegation as a moment that kind of defined your career and made you realize what it took, because we introduced you as a League Two winning player and a promotion winning coach. We always lean straight towards the successes, but it's actually those really difficult moments that define you and set you up for those high achievements.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we're in a world now where everybody tries to show the good moments and the great thing, which I think people need to see, right? Because they need to see that success is possible. But also, like I said, for me, it was the tough times, it was the relegations, it was the injuries, seasons, it was the missing games, it was the mistakes that I made was what actually propelled me forward, because it was the fuel to keep me moving forward, keep me getting better. Because in those moments you have an option, and your options are you rise above it, work through it, build upon those mistakes, build through those mistakes, or you let the mistakes or the tough times or the difficult times win and send you backwards, and you go within yourself, you hide, you don't come out in the way that you can and that you should. So for me, those moments are just as important in order to achieve success. And we get so focused on the goal and the outcome that we forget that the actual beauty is in the journey. And failure or tough moments are part of that journey.
Yeah, I think that's something we all sort of caught up. I think, famously you ask someone on their, their deathbed or something like, what do they wish they'd maybe, changed or done differently, and like, been maybe, just enjoyed the journey, right? And so it's so true. And I think, that was something I always got so caught up in, was, my internal dialogue just kind of, spinning around those things. Did you ever have any like methods or tactics to try and like, sort of bring you back? Because you have to sort of feel those hard moments, but was there anything, you can't really escape that, but was there anything that you used that could kind of bring you back in?
I think I would try and center myself. I would reflect quite a lot. And I think I became more aware of like what I was doing as I got older and as I got a little bit wiser, I hope. So a lot of self-reflection, a lot of looking within, constantly sort of asking myself questions: how can I improve? How can I get better? What more could I do? That's probably the biggest thing, really, being brave enough to ask myself difficult questions, not avoiding difficult moments, which is really tough, right? It has its good points, but it also has its sort of difficult side to it also, because you're constantly in a battle with yourself as well. And I think a lot of successful people go through this, where because they're that way inclined, they then are also not always satisfied. They always want the next thing, always want more. And I think that's also one of the dangers, that sometimes you don't actually enjoy the moment enough. And it's not until kind of those times are gone, and I look back on my football career now, and I'm probably quite bad for this. I don't always appreciate some of the successes I've got. Not because I don't know that they're successful, but just because you're always thinking, right, that's great, I've done that. Okay, what's the next achievement I can go and get now? What's the next thing I can do? But I think it's really important, this is something that I've learned off playing. It's really important that you enjoy the moments of success, and fully sort of engage in it, because you're willing to engage in the difficult times. You have to be willing to engage in the successful times also, and really enjoy those moments, because they don't always come around often.
Yeah, I can 100% relate to that, because I was the same. I didn't enjoy the successes that I had as much as I should have done. I mean, for example, immediately after the Rio Olympics, I was already thinking about what I needed to do to get better in Tokyo in the next games. And I spent so much time in 2017, the year after the Olympics, thinking, I've got so much work to do. I need to push so hard. I need to keep on going and going and going. And maybe by the time 2020 comes around, I'll be good. Not that I knew that a pandemic was going to be coming around and it was going to be postponed anyway. So all the energy and all the focus that I put into thinking about what was coming next, rather than just actually enjoying what I just did, was completely wasted, because you can't predict what's coming in the future. And, even further than that, I won an amazing World Cup silver medal in 2016 as well, just before the Olympics. And it was an outrageous performance. I literally peaked at that point.
It was outrageous.
The medal that I got, the medal that I got, I literally, when I got home, I put the medal in a drawer and hid it away for about 3 years, because it was such a kind of anomalous performance compared to what I would normally do. I felt like it was just a fluke, and that I somehow didn't deserve it because it was just a random moment. So I put the medal in the drawer for 3 years, and I only felt comfortable enough to take it out the drawer and have it on display and something I could look at and reflect on. When I won my second international medal at the Pan American Games. And that's only the point that made me realize, wow, I'm actually decent. And I actually deserved that medal at that time. That was me, that was mine. And it took that long, and it took another dose of success to really appreciate what I've done and enjoy that moment.
I can fully understand that. And it's interesting sort of that you say that, right? Because it goes back to, we have to live in the moment that we're in. And I think, especially as a professional athlete, we are so goal orientated that it's always about the next achievement. And as I said, it's a good trait to have. It's something that's needed if you're going to want to perform at your best. But also you can undervalue the work you put in and the effort that you put in to get to that point. And I think that sometimes is something that, can end up being not detrimental to your success, but it stops you appreciating what you do and how you do it and what you've earned, because it's not given. None of these things that we achieve are given. Like, they're earned through true sacrifice and willingness to outwork. You're talking about being second best in the world. That's an unbelievable achievement. But we don't think of it like that at times, right? We sometimes just think,
Exactly.
I'm not deserving of this, or I should have been there, or I should have got that. But actually, when you break it down, there would be so many millions of people that would bite your hand off to change place and own, an Olympics or a medal. So it's an incredible achievement. My whole identity was me being a footballer. If I was introduced, it was, this is Karleigh, he's a professional footballer. I was a dad, husband, I was a son, brother, I was a uncle, like all of these things way before I was a professional footballer. And ultimately, me being a professional footballer was my job, like my job title. But you don't necessarily get introduced as, this is Karleigh Osborne, I don't know, McDonald's worker or things like that. Like, you don't get necessarily introduced by your job title unless you're in a job situation, so to speak, or you go to the meeting, right? And introducing you as what part you play. And also, I think it's the bit where I'm also living the dream of millions of people, and even that weight of the world is a lot. When I fail, it's public. When I fail, other people have an opinion on it. When I get it wrong or make a mistake, other people think they can do it better. So you're constantly battling that as well. And that could be really heavy at times because, as I said, you're sort of carrying the hopes and dreams of so many other people.
Oh, Yona, how good is this episode so far?
Mate, it's unreal, but if it's so good, why are we interrupting?
Well, we've got to tell them a couple of things, remember?
Yeah, how silly of me. Come join us on Patreon, where you can contribute to the success of this podcast while gaining close access to the sporting stars that we speak to.
By subscribing, you can get early access to ad-free episodes, shout out in the credits, extended interviews, unfiltered chats between Yona and I, and live Q&As.
Sounds pretty good. You can get 50% off your first month if you sign up before August 31st. So you can get all of that for the price of a cup of coffee. The Patreon is linked below, and you'll also find a link to 20% off store-wide with Budget Smugglr.
But anyway, enough of that. Let's get back to the episode, shall we?
Fine, let's go.
Obviously, football's a huge sport, right? And it's a worldwide sport. But I think even with diving, and you're going to represent your country, like you're representing millions of people. Like you're still not just representing yourself, if that makes sense. I think with football, it's, I don't know if unique is the right word, but with football, it's a game where everybody has an opinion. Everybody thinks they know the answer. Whereas, like, for example, maybe in diving, it's a little bit different where not many people necessarily think they know how to do a dive. It's a very skilled sport, right? And football is a very skilled sport, but it's one of those sports where millions of people think they could do it better or know the answer or know what you should have done in that moment. And that's not the case, right? We're making decisions on the pitch which will impact thousands of fans and thousands of people, and you have milliseconds to make it, right? And it's as simple as if I take a touch and then go to play a pass and then maybe take an extra touch and then a close down by the forward and then the forward runs away with the ball and goes and scores. Thousands of people see that moment. Thousands of people feel that pain. Thousands of people look at you and go, why have you done that? You could have done that. You should have done that. But when you're in the moment, it's not that simple.
And on top of it, then you've got the pundits diving into the tiniest little details, which, and honestly, like, it's actually turned me off football a little bit. And I've been watching, if I'm going to watch a match, I won't watch the pre-match build-up and I won't watch the post-match reaction because I just want to see the game. I don't want to see what the pundits got to say because they dive into all the tiny details way too much. And it's a bit jarring for me, because I imagine if they did that with diving, and if they looked at some of my dives, like, oh, they'd have an absolute field day. They should be a disaster. And that's exactly what your point is. Like, diving is a spectacle that people can watch, but not many people can do it. So you can kind of just watch it and think, wow, that's amazing. But with football, because it's so accessible, everyone can do it. Everyone can say, well, I would have passed it there. Like, I would have taken that touch better, whatever. And then on top of that, you've got the financial incentive as well. And everyone's like, oh, these guys are paid millions of pounds and all of this, and they still can't control the ball. Like, but they're missing the point of the fact that it's actually really difficult, and you're making split second decisions to try and create a good opportunity for your team. And sometimes it doesn't go your way. But you're under the microscope, and it's a high amount of pressure to deal with. But from that, you would have, I imagine, learned a lot of lessons. And taken a lot of skills.
100%. I learned so many key and valuable lessons. It's what comes with the job ultimately. It's what comes with being a professional athlete, being a footballer. That's part of what I signed up for. Doesn't make it easy. Doesn't mean I liked it. But I understood it came with the job, right? And I think it's something like 1% or just under 1% of people who want to become a footballer actually make it. So for me, I'm extremely proud, because that's something that no one ever be able to take away from me. Like, I didn't just sign a professional contract, play for a year, and then disappear into kind of the rest of the world. I played for 16 and a half years. Like, I dedicated my life to sport. I dedicated my life to being a winner. I dedicated my life to perform at the best I could, day in, day out, constantly being judged, constantly being looked at as someone who should just be able to do whatever he wants at any point, and that's not the case. Right? There was a lot of sacrifice that came with it, and I was willing to do that because I love the sport and I love what I did. And I know it's one of the greatest achievements that I've had in life, being a professional footballer and having a professional career. Right? Played over 350 something games. So I'm proud.
It's incredible. And with that being said, what's the most valuable skill or lesson that you've taken away from football into daily life, or even into coaching? What's been the one most valuable skill that you learned from those 300 plus games that you played?
I think there's probably a few. It's a really good question as well. I like that question. Well, I think there's a few. I think the first will be being willing to show up no matter how I felt or how tough it was. Just being willing to show up every day. And
that's a brilliant one.
Try to better myself, I think, is the first thing. And then I think another one would be and I think this is definitely something I learned after, because I don't think I was enough to myself at times when I was playing. But after, I think it's being forgiven enough to understand that sometimes you will get it wrong, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean that you are a failure. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're not any good. It just means that you're human. And it's all about how you're going to react, what you're willing to do to change, adjust, adapt, to move forward, and still go out there and give everything you possibly can, so that you can ultimately try and be the best version of yourself that you can do. I think people say they can, but I'm not fully sure you can actually fully be. I think we're humans, so I think we'll always have moments where we sometimes let other people's opinions or other people's voices be heard. I think the key to it and the superpower to it is being able to, even in those moments, if you do let someone else's negative voice be heard, you're not willing to let it actually impact what you do, though. And that's a really tough choice to make, right? Ultimately, the voice of doubt is loud. The voice of our own doubt is very loud. So when you've got them added in extra other people trying to offer that to you as well, it becomes different. I know for me, I still at times have those moments of self-doubt. I still at times have those moments when I care about other people's opinions too much. what I've come to realize is other people can have an opinion, but it's my life to live. And if I want to achieve the things that I want to achieve, then no matter whether or not I doubt myself, no matter whether or not someone else doubts me, if I'm willing to put in the work, take action and show up consistently, then I can achieve it. And as I said, I think it's really important that, because I mean, sometimes we get to a place where we try and avoid stuff all the time. And I don't necessarily think avoidance is the best way. I think sometimes it's, like I said, especially when it comes to self-doubt and your own voice, I think sometimes it's important to hear what it is and then assess it, break it down and go, okay, why do I feel like that? What is it I could do to change that? Or what am I doing that's making me think that? And then reverse engineer it. If you constantly live in a place of listening to the voice of self-doubt, then you'll never truly achieve anything anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you're in that place and you're in that position because you earned the right to be there. It's not been given to you. Like you might have had a talent in terms of there may have been natural elements that you have that allowed you to be a good diver, but you had to work to get to the place of being a great diver to then be on the biggest stages in the world to perform. That took years of dedication. That took so many moments of overcoming self-doubt, so many moments overcoming when you couldn't get the dive right. You were willing to get back up there and dive again and again and again and again. So for me, those are the most important kind of fundamentals. I said it earlier, being willing to show up, stepping through, like sometimes the best thing you can do is run towards the problem, not run away from it. And I think of that as sports people, right? We do that. I think that's a motivator for me. Doubt, without a doubt. I said doubt without a doubt. Without a doubt, it was those difficult sort of times when people were telling me I'm not good enough that spurred me on. I used it as fuel. I didn't use that to put out my fire. I used it to fuel the fire so that one day I could look back and go, well, you was wrong.
That's incredible advice.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Doing is a key, because even if, for example, right, when we started our journeys as professional football people or a diver or a footballer in my case, we didn't start from being the best. We started from a place, ultimately, we wasn't very good at it. We were just willing to keep doing it. And we was willing to put in more reps than anyone else. He was willing to spend more time looking at how can we improve. You would have spent more hours, more days, more weeks, more months than anyone else self-reflecting on how we can get better. What do we need to improve? We was able to be super vulnerable with ourselves and go, right, that's not good enough. I need to make a change. What's the change I'm going to make? Okay, right, that's brilliant. That started to work. Wait, I've plateaued a little bit now. Okay, what do I need to do here? How do I adjust? How do I adapt to again, move on to the next level? So everything that we've achieved has been earned. It's not been given.
Yeah. It sounds like you are a person just with higher expectations of yourself than that of anyone else could have of you.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the best position to be in as an athlete. And that has resulted in a successful career for yourself where, as we said, you've had over 300 games, which is a phenomenal achievement, which, not many people in this country could dream of. And now moving into coaching, obviously you've got this level of excellence for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole different thing trying to put that excellence onto other people and drag people through that journey to achieve the standards that you expect. So I guess, how do you spoke about the mindset you have in terms of winning and wanting to win at all times. Mm-hmm. How do you embed that winning mindset amongst your team whilst making sure to protect the people that you have playing for you?
That's a really good question. And so through my career, it was very much for person.
Yes.
It was great at times, but ultimately it was very difficult also because people only really cared about the player. What people didn't connect enough, which I think more people are now doing it, is actually the player performs better if the person's right.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is whenever I'm working with sort of players or people in general, the first thing I try and do is get them to understand that How you show up as a person is going to impact how you perform. You have to be fully understanding of and accepting of the fact that you're going to get things wrong, and that's okay. And then you have to be willing to, or committed to stepping through that journey, and no matter what barrier you come to, find a way around it, over it, or through it. And I always like to, for me, it's about supporting the people I work with. It's not about giving them the answers, but it's about supporting them and letting them know that actually anything's possible. You can achieve anything. I'm no different from you. I'm just another human being who had a dream and was willing to go after it full force. And I think, that's something we can all do. It's just trying to lead them in a way that they allow themselves to, as I said, be forgiving sometimes to themselves. Don't beat yourself up too much. That's not to say you shouldn't challenge yourself, because you should. You need to check and challenge yourself sometimes. And you may be not doing the right things, and you may be slacking off in certain areas. You have to check and challenge yourself. But you don't have to beat yourself up about it. We just have to understand that, right? That's not good for the goal I'm trying to reach. I need to make a change. I need to adapt. And then figuring out the path of what that is. When I was playing, success was only about winning medals and winning trophies. Whereas now, when I'm in a different space coaching and doing mindset and performance coaching, the individual has to define what success looks like for them. And then if we talk about football, right, as an individual, you have to define what success looks like. And then within the team group, you have to define what success looks like as a group. And then it's about how you make what your success looks like align with what the team element looks like. But obviously, if you're in an individual sport, then it is ultimately about what does success look like for you and defining that. Don't define your success by somebody else's vision or view of it. It should be defined by you and you only. Then, as I said, when you work in a team sport, you then have to try and find a way for that to align with the goals you're trying to reach.
What are some of your non-negotiables for your team?
So non-negotiables for my team is first and foremost, be willing to show up every day. That's the first and foremost to me, a non-negotiable. Full accountability for what you do and the impact you're going to have in our environment. That's another one. And I think probably no excuses. The most important one also for me is each one of us has to be willing to sacrifice. One, obviously sacrifice things for ourselves, but most importantly, sacrifice something for somebody else. And that doesn't mean you have to sacrifice something every single time we're training, but there'll be a time when someone needs you and you have to be willing to sacrifice in that moment because they will do the same back for you. Well, I think it's firstly looking at, okay, when you get to the end of your career, what is it you want to have achieved? What does it look like? The best achievements you can have, what does that look like? So we work what that is, right? We understand what that end goal looks like. When you retire and you're leaving the game, you know what you've kind of won, collected and done. And then we work backwards from there, and we figure out what the process looks like. And then I think once you figure out what the process looks like, final question you ask is, are you willing to sacrifice and give everything you can in order to achieve that end goal? Because this is what the journey looks like. The journey is going to be extremely tough. The journey is going to mean that at times when other people are doing certain things, you're not going to be able to do it. You might have to sacrifice time with family and kids. You might have to move all over the country, right? You might have to be willing to take views and people judging you. Like, are you willing to commit to that journey for the next 15, 20 years, whatever it looks like? And if you believe that you are, and you think you're ready, then let's go. Day by day, we look to build the foundations and build the blocks to ultimately get to the end.
No, I thought that was a brilliant final point. You know, it's the step by step, the day by day, like just dealing with whatever you get. And sometimes you do have terrible days, sometimes you do have great days. But I always found the best approach for me was to try and stay as level as possible throughout. Like, as you say, Karleigh, knowing what the final goal is, like knowing what your target is, knowing what you're aiming for, because that's the driver.
Yeah.
But being level, not getting too high when it's good,
Yeah.
and not getting too down when it's bad.
Yeah.
Because inevitably, if there are good, there's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Like, is a guarantee. And if you don't know that as an athlete, then you need to reframe everything.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just about staying level as possible all the way through. But then again, that's such a positive thing, but then it feeds back to what we were talking about before, where you don't actually sometimes enjoy the great moments.
Yeah.
So it's about like trying to find the balance between, getting all of that right, which is just tough. But that's the game that we're in. That's professional sport. That's sport at the highest level.
Yeah.
And the most successful ones are the ones who are able to maximize their talent whilst balancing all of that psychological stuff going on in the background, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's true what you said. You can't have one without the other, because if you can't have good without knowing what bad looks like, and you can't have bad without knowing what good looks like, right? So you have to accept that if you want the successes, you want the good stuff, or what you deem to be the good stuff, then you have to be willing to accept the bad that comes with it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I think one of the best things, and this was only something recently that I heard, can't think who I heard it from now, was it was a quote, and they said best advice he ever got was, it is just that simple. And it sounds crazy, right? But it took me a really long time to break it down, because in my head I'm like, what do you mean it's just that simple? But it is. We create so many stories in our own mind, which is why sometimes we make things feel a lot more difficult than it is. But ultimately, if you're willing to commit and go all in, if you're willing to sacrifice when you need to sacrifice, if you're willing to understand that you won't always win, but if you keep showing up, ultimately you will win more times than you lose, and take the daily action, then actually it is. You just have to be willing to go all in. And as we said earlier, take action daily.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm completely on board with that as well, because it's there are obviously complexities to high level sport, right? But actually, it's the age of saying, like, sometimes you just got to go back to basics. If it's not working for whatever reason, sometimes you just got to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the basics of the technique of the sport, because that's where the complexity lies, right? So the dives that we do are very complex compared to most people.
Yeah.
Your abilities as a footballer are very complex, but it's the basics, the fundamentals, exactly what you just said, showing up, the accountability, all those, the base level of what it takes to be a professional athlete. Getting those right will get you very far.
Yeah.
And I do like that. It's simple. It's a simple game.
Yeah, it is. We just overcomplicate things. Like
100%.
That's how the mind works, doesn't it? That's how we work as humans. We're always looking to stay safe and sort of avoid any kind of negative situation. Within that, we end up probably creating more, because our own minds start to tell us stories or write stories about, what could go wrong or what we can't do, or rather than thinking about actually we can. And most, especially in sport, right? Like, that an Olympic diver has won a gold medal. So it's possible. It's possible. It's no different from people used to say that you can never run a 4-minute mile, and then someone went and done it. It's like, now everybody can run a 4-minute mile. So it's possible, but we just have to stay true to ourselves and as linear as possible and try and break those things down. But the hardest part of that is being able to do it for such a long and consistent length of time. So I'm on Instagram, Aussie_14, LinkedIn as well, Karleigh Osborne. I'm on TikTok, all those socials. So yeah, you can find me there.
We'll get the socials and all the links tagged in below.
Perfect.
Karleigh, thank you very much. That's where we'll wrap up the episode. I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Thank you. It's brilliant. It's been a real pleasure. I really appreciate you having me on the show. You guys are doing some fantastic things, and without a doubt, you're having a big impact on the sport and community and on many people's lives. So keep doing the great work that you do. Thanks.
Appreciate it.